So hello, I'm David Wilbur. I'm a principal developer at SBS. This is Marty Palma.
Yeah, I'm Marty Palma. I'm the Director of Software Development here at SBS. Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all this morning.
Yeah, so I'll be presenting some updates for the AUD product, and then Marty will be presenting some things for the UDH suite of products. So first we're going to, I'm going to do a AUD product update, go over some changes to the product, followed by Marty going over the UDH changes. Then we'll talk a little bit about future roadmap for both. A little bit of discussion about how we're trying to rethink the configuration process. And then finally, a couple short demos of some new functionality. So first, I'd like to talk about the AUD product. I'm sure everyone here is probably familiar with AUD. It does support several different domains. Most of you are probably here for electric. But we want to note that the product is now available as ABD, and a little later Scott will be talking a little bit about how that addresses some needs in the telecom community. We have some extensions to the data model and some things that are unique to ABD, but it is a brand of AUD and is really AUD under the hood. So quick recap of changes. This is as of the last PUG. So if any of you were here last year, these are the changes to the product since then. So we've had several updates released for AUD 8.4 version. If any of you are on the 8.4 version, resolved a few issues there. The 8.5 version, we've released a few updates for it, including 12 enhancements and several issues taken care of on that. And then, of course, in the spring, we released the 9.0 version of AUD, and we recently released the 9.1 minor release version. And that included 24 different enhancements and a lot of resolved issues there. So AUD 9 is important. It changes the way we're doing our release versioning. So we're moving to a sort of quarterly minor version release sequence, and also introduce support for AutoCAD 2025. And the 9.1 minor release adds support for AutoCAD 2026. So in total, that's about 36 enhancements and 62 resolved issues over all those releases. And about 3 new major features in AUD 9. So one of the big changes in AUD 9 and over this last year of development is a move to AutoCAD 2025 and 2026. And so in the spring of 24, AutoCAD came out with 2025, and it changed to using .NET Core, and that was a major shift in technology platform. And so we had a lot of development effort upgrading the products for that, culminating in AUD 9 being released in the spring of this year. And then we also, after that release, added the support in for 2026, which continues to use .NET 8. So we're onto a sort of new platform, and so we see future upgrades being a lot simpler than we encountered this last year. And so we'll, after AUD 9.1, release more minor releases with new functionality, supporting both 2025 and 2026. And so, that's really improved our ability to be on the latest versions of platform technology, which is important from a security standpoint. It means we can use technology that is the latest patched versions of dependencies. It's better dependent libraries we can use, better technology just in general we can leverage by being on these the newer .NET platform. And of course, it's going to make future upgrades simpler for us. So it's important to note that being on the latest AutoCAD, it's the same AUD as you would have in the other versions, but you get all the latest capabilities of AutoCAD. And AutoCAD's improving their, let's say, document loading performance, graphics performance, a lot of general functionality that you're going to find useful. So in terms of AUD, I want to talk about AUD, also the admin toolkit, which is used with AUD. A lot of you are probably familiar with using it to set up your configurations. So as before, all of this is still compatible. So if you're on 8.5 or earlier, we haven't changed fundamentally anything. The base configuration should be compatible. Although we are dropping support for AutoCAD and map versions which are not officially supported by Autodesk. So this is going to drop off about 3 versions back. And you can see from here, 9.1 will support 2023 through 2026, 9.0 from 22 to 25, and then different versions for the patches for 8.5 and 8.4. So in AUD, there are some improvements to the underground network routing, some of which is shared with the ABD technology. So some improvements you might find useful for complicated underground routing scenarios. And then we added some improvements to selection filtering, so allowing you to work a little bit easier with long validation lists and material, and as well as some other tools for viewport generation and an automated grid layout tool. The admin toolkit, it's really just keeping up with the new functions in the product to support configuring those. And of course, we've also aligned the version numbering so that you'll know that the admin toolkit version will match the corresponding AUD version. So getting into the major new features in AUD, the underground layout tools will include the ability to route lines more easily and a new flexible command for laying out new contained cables, and selection filtering that allow you to filter down the validation panel. So you'll see that can be kind of difficult to work with a long list of validation ports. Material list summaries that can be used to more easily kind of get a quick summary of your bill of material for selected features. And then a set of new commands and tools for creating viewports and an automated grid generation tool. So the route lines with details functionality allows you to place details and easily route your lines using the detail. So this can be done graphically and a lot more intuitive than some of the other workflows for this. And a new command. It's a little bit more flexible. So if you need to lay out cabling and in conduit or direct buried, instead of having to create different macros, we have a more generalized command for that. The validation selection filtering it really changes how the selection filtering works in the validation panel. It filters down the results to match whatever you've selected in your design. So the material summation selection filtering. So we've had a lot of filtering available in the material list, but some of these options, like the selection filtering, weren't available to the summation mode. So with this support, it allows you to quickly see what the sums of quantities are for just selected subsets. So if you need to go and just select some things and say, hey, what are the total quantities just within this group, that allows you to view the summation results just for those selected features. The view and viewport creation allows you to create named views. And then once that view is defined, you can easily create a viewport. This can be used to create, side section views. This will create a clipped view, so this can be used to create, 3D side section views easily. And there are commands to easily rescale this to standard viewport scaling sizes, as well as a command that allows you to jump from a boundary to it. So these are defined by putting a boundary window area around what you want to create the section from, and this allows you to jump from that to the corresponding sheet, so it's a nice navigation aid for that. And also support for configuring shade plots and layer states that are needed for that viewport. The automated feature grid function is something that was really introduced for substation use, but it really is possible to create a just standard grid. So any time you have a standard grid layout, you can easily use this tool to generate a full connected set of conductors and connected devices. I'll quickly go through a lot of other smaller enhancements. We have improvements to how sweeps can be generated more flexibly, a lot of new rule functions to control that. Overhead analysis can now specify a calculated length for voltage drop. We added improvements for how the buried depth of a pole can be specified. I know that's just a little bit of a workflow complication. That can be set up to work a lot more smoothly now to expose what you want the buried depth of the pole to be. And then for layout, we have a lot of improvements to how snapping can work, support for selecting how structures are assigned within a like a vault And support for offsetting from civil objects. So if you have reference drawings in civil, this introduces the ability to do straight offsets from those, from, say, civil pipes or alignments. The material list also now has improved support for alphanumeric sorting, improvements of performance in the material catalog, work location fixes. So we introduced the ability to display the work location in the info tools, and that led to some behavioral things that we fixed up in the last year's releases, and then some compatibility improvements to things like CAD conversion for dynamic blocks and a much faster validation icon display in large drawings. So if you have very large drawings and displaying those validation icons, it's much faster now. So the admin toolkit really has support for the new AUD features that were introduced in the last release or so, and then resolve some issues that came up in the admin toolkit. And I'd like to end the product update with a note. I usually mention this every year, but the portal will have the release notes of the product as well as some white papers. But really, the AUD product help is also a great resource. Searching the AUD product help, all of the new functionality should be listed in that AUD product help, and that's a great place to look to for information. All the things I went over in this product update will be listed out in the release notes there. So that's one place you can always find some information about the new functionality. So I'm going to hand it over to Marty to talk about UDH.
All right, let's talk about the UDH product updates. So Utility Data Hub, we have our EAM and GIS modules. For this year, this past year, the UDH core, we've provided the ability now to, we've first off added some security improvements, mainly the ability to fully encrypt configuration files now. Previously, we had the ability to encrypt like certain keys and stuff like that, important individual items within the file, but now we have the ability to encrypt the entire files so that everything is properly obscured from the end users who are using their systems. We've added support for Azure Key Vault, so you can actually retrieve your secrets and passwords and those types of things from a key vault if you use one of those. And then we also made the installation location more configurable. So where are the files laid down? Files that need to be writable, certain configuration files or stuff like that, where you may be changing or modifying pieces of the configuration in those files, those can live in various different locations now. We also added support for multiple environments. So this has been a big request that's come in over the years of doing these deployments, right? Your teams are out there working, and you might have a dev environment, you might have a QA environment, a user acceptance test environment, a production environment, and it's a strain on your users when they're using UDH in that, hey, I need to switch between dev and test to do something. Well, you have to uninstall and then install to the new environment, and then uninstall and install back to the old environment. And it's just time-consuming and frustrating. So we've added the ability now, when you're installing, you can be presented with as many environments as you have during the installation process. You can select which environments you want to install to the system, and then you can you can install whichever environments you select, and then you can switch between those environments without having to do a reinstallation. And then next, on the EAM side, we've obviously added support for Vault 2025 and 2026 when those came out over the last 2 years. So we now support those. We've added a alternative design workflow. So both network enhanced and Vault document management systems now support an alternate design workflow, and we'll do a demo of that. And then work orders. You can now configure, when you're linking, you can have preset properties. So a lot of times it's often important that When you're going to do a link that some property has been set on your work order properties that the user might need to preset or fill in because it drives some logical functionality that the system needs to perform. Like maybe you have to set the subdivision in order to know what the directory that the drawing is going to get saved in. So we've added the ability now where we can configure it to say these properties must be set before you link, and if they're not set, it'll take you to the properties form, allow you to set them, and then continue on with the link as opposed to not having those set in the first place. On the UDH GIS side of the house, for Model Map, it's been heavily concentrating on enhancing the workflows for our configurators to be able to configure faster. That's the big test with GIS is getting all those mappings done, and they take an extremely long time to work through all that logic. So we're just trying to provide as many tools as possible to those that configure that tool to be able to implement faster. Additionally, we've added support for Esri Arc Pro 3.x for our Playback Manager suite, so that is available now as well. And then on the NetMaps component, we've basically modernized to use the WebView 2 browser. The older browser that was embedded in NetMaps is kind of seen end of life, so we've updated to use the WebView 2. It's Chromium-based, works a lot nicer. And then we've also added support for Azure Maps. Bing Maps, which we previously supported, has been deprecated by Microsoft. They're moving to Azure Maps, so we've added that support in as well. So the alternative designs, we now support the alternative design workflow. So when you have a design open or you're looking at a design in the work order browser, you can right-click and say Show Alternatives. And that will open up in the palette set, a flow there where you can create alternative design drawings for your work order. You can navigate between your alternative designs, and you can set which one you want to be the active design. So what is a use case for an alternative design? Maybe you want to do an underground design and an alternative overhead design for costing purposes to present to a customer for quotation. It's going to cost this much if you want to do underground, it's going to cost this much if you want to do overhead, and you want both of those linked to your work order, and you want to be able to switch and send data back and forth between them. So this supports that kind of workflow. You can start from an existing work order design, so maybe you've laid out an overhead design and you want to do a more complicated one, or maybe something with larger features in it or something like that. You can take a direct copy of that and create a new alternate from it. Or you can start from a blank drawing and just a fresh new design that's also an alternate. We have configurable naming standards in there for the alternates, so they'll typically follow the form of whatever your naming standard is for the main design. The alternates, they can auto-increment their numbering. You can have it, name it in a programmatic or a logical fashion. And then you can restore work order properties when switching between them. So a lot of times your work order properties drive costing. It could be if the tax districts is different, or just any number of examples where for the overhead design you might have to set specific properties to say this is overhead construction, other things that get passed back to the work management system. And then when you switch to the underground design, you need a different set of properties. Well, typically you'd have to go into the work order properties and change those. Well, if you switch back to the overhead, then they would still be the properties that you had set for underground, so you need them to switch back. So these designs remember their properties, or you can configure which properties are remembered, and they'll prompt you, and we'll do a demonstration later and show you that, but it'll prompt you if we want to maintain, restore your properties, those types of things as you switch back and forth between the designs. And last, this all was added. We added the Vault support in version 3.1, which was just released about a month ago. The original for network enhanced alternative designs came out in 3.0, which was released earlier this year. So. Application environment switching, I talked a little bit about this earlier, but again, installation environment detailed spreadsheet. Those of you who have done implementations with us know we've got that wonderful spreadsheet that defines all of the integration things that we're connecting to when you're doing an installation. You define multiple environments in that spreadsheet typically, and we now support all of those environments. So when you're running the installation, you're provided with, here's all the environments available to you to lay down. You can choose to install them all. You can choose just to install certain ones. Maybe when you're ready for production, you don't want any other alternative environments on the end user's machines, and you're only going to install for prod. But while you're in test and development, you want dev and QA and whatever other environments you may have defined. So during installation, you can select those. And then a separate environment folder gets added to disk for each environment that you've selected. And then the UDH EAM design toolbar, when you're actually running it, at the very bottom, there's a little pop-up that you can pull there that shows you the current environment that you're in and allows you to select and switch to a different environment. So if you had 3 environments laid down and you're currently in dev, it might show you test and production, as you see here, as your 2 alternatives that you can switch to right within the application without requiring, requiring a reinstallation of the product.
Thanks, Marty. It was a great presentation on UDH. So we're going to talk a little bit about the roadmap in terms of product enhancements and releases. So we're clearly going to be putting out updates for 8.4, 8.5, and 9X, versions of the product. So this will cover, the things you guys report. When we hear about your issues, those don't just go into a black hole, right? Those go to us, and we are working through those, and our process is to release these updates to you to get those fixes and changes to you. We expect 9.2 and 9.3 minor releases. These are generally targeted quarterly, so these would fall in fall Q4 2025 and Q1 of 2026. So those are the tentative dates, target dates, when you might expect those releases to come out. So in spring of 2026, we would plan to put out the new major releases, which for UDH would be 4.0. We're expecting a OCalc integration to be included there, and of course support for MAP 2027. The AUD major release also will be supporting MAP 2027. We're looking at improving the ability to configure the AUD table functionality. It's currently very, very complex to configure an AUD table. We're wanting to really kind of democratize that, make it a lot easier to author and maintain. It's a commonly used feature, but it's just currently a little difficult to configure, so we're looking at ways to improve that. And then some configuration differencing tools, and I can show some early prototypes. We have that, and it's part of our strategy for improving the whole configuration process. So beyond that, again, we're looking at how to simplify the overall configuration process. These various AI tools that Al mentioned, as well as improved behavior and functionality with Civil 3D. So there's a lot of different ways we can work with Civil 3D. I'm sure others may be speaking to that later this week, but that's definitely on a roadmap to look at improving the integration there. And the last thing I want to mention about the roadmap is that the PUG is an extremely important part of this. So your feedback, the discussions we have here at the PUG, this is coming to us and is going to help inform us that we're making the right decisions and we're implementing things the way they need to be implemented. We're hearing about your challenges and issues, so we can look into those as well. So this is a great time to provide us your feedback on this. So this section, I'm going to talk about some of our strategy around reworking the configuration process. And so this is really about looking at the workflow for setting up AUD. Now, a lot of you have already gone through the initial process of collecting all of your major information that goes into AUD configuration. Others of you may be at a point where you're maintaining your configuration. You've already got everything set up, it's in production, but you need to make ongoing changes with it. So first, I want to look at the workflow leveraging the template builder. And this is a workflow that fits very well in the initial stages where you're collecting all of your information, you're populating a lot of Excel spreadsheets, you're working with large amounts of listings of your attribution and data model, you're collecting your standards, you're building up model spreadsheets of all of your standard materials and equipment. But there's some challenges with this, right? So there's still a lot of configuration that has to be done in the AUD product, right? So the changes in the product, things like defining rules, there's various settings that aren't configured through spreadsheets, and those need to be made and then exported out for use by the template builder tool. There's other changes that may need to get made while the configuration's being set up that are done in product, and those need to be manually merged back into the spreadsheets that represent the system of record. And then finally, the biggest complexity with the template builder workflow is actually needing to rebuild the template to incorporate those changes in order to get that system of record template. So the end result of all of this is you end up with a system of record template that you are going to push out to production for all your users. So one strategy here is to use the product itself as the main focus of configuration. Now, in order for that to be viable compared to a template builder workflow, you are going to need the ability to work in Excel. You're going to need the ability to have a spreadsheet-like environment to specify most of your configuration information. And that is abundantly clear. So I don't want this to sound like we are discouraging the idea of using Excel. But what we want is to better integrate that into the product configuration workflow and to avoid the need to have to build a template or to have to keep that as a system of record. Another part of this is the inevitable situation where you're going to need to merge changes. So maybe you hand that drawing or a template to someone and they need to make some tweaks to a model, or they need to make some tweaks to the system configuration. It can be painful to take those changes from that modified drawing and merge that back into the master configuration. And so a big part of this strategy is to provide tools to help with that merging process. And the hope is that with sufficiently simple merging tools, the workflow can then shift to a situation where folks that need to do configuration changes can simply use the product, they can simply use a copy of the template, make those changes, and then those changes can be easily merged back into the main system of record configuration. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that the template itself needs to be the system of record stored in your file management system. I know a lot of folks may do that. They may keep the DWT as the system of record. There are also possibilities to use exported versions of that to store the individual files. Those are considerations we're looking at, as well as building the tools to make that seamless. So the idea here is that we want to make the configuration as smooth and seamless as possible and to eliminate these kinds of workflow difficulties in having to import and export and maintain and merge the changes. So to achieve this, we're looking at providing a tool to help with looking at those diffs. So you need to be able to easily look at what the changes are. And so this is a early prototype we have of a differencing tool. And in this example, it's showing a model table. So in this case, you may have a situation where someone has edited the set of switch models. Perhaps this was given to a subject matter expert who needed to change these out or make edits to it. So they may have removed or added items, they may have made changes to individual fields. And so with this tool, it's easy to see and filter down to viewing just what those changes were. So the idea here is to provide tooling to make it easier to merge in changes where someone else can review and edit, and then easily merge that all back into that system of record. These kinds of tools also could play well in situations where you're using Excel to make a lot of changes, and these same tools can be applied to merging in changes that might have been made in an external Excel file that's being pulled in. So I just want to take a moment to look at the workflow that we currently have with a Excel and template builder scenario. So you folks are probably very familiar with this process. The template builder configuration and spreadsheets are stored centrally in a file management system. You'll have the subject matter experts work with those spreadsheets to define that. The template builder will be used to create your DWT template. But after that point, you may need to make other changes in the product, changes that aren't made through the spreadsheets. That leads to a need to export those files out to your template builder image, as well as to export any other changes that may need to go into the spreadsheets, and then that leads to an inevitable need to manually merge those changes into the spreadsheets, so that you still can't really avoid scenarios where you may need to merge changes together. And of course, this process has to be continued anytime you need to make any changes to your configuration and rebuild that template to get it back into the hands of the folks who need to use it. So using an approach where the system of record is the DWT or just a dump of the core configuration of that DWT means that it can be pulled out and exported to Excel if necessary, or changes could be made in the product, and then those changes are merged back. So you'll see here a key part of this is the need to merge back. So we're hoping to provide sufficient merging tools so that then that system of record can be centralized and this product is simply used to make those edits and changes back. The advantage here is that you will always have a DWT that is up to date and is the latest without having to rebuild it. Now that doesn't mean you cannot rebuild a clean template, right? So that's a matter of taking the core configuration and maybe creating a nice clean template from that DWT. So it's not the same exact DWT that you're maintaining. Maybe it builds up some cruft in that DWT and you want to start from a very clean template image. So again, this simplifies the process using the product and always maintaining a DWT that's the latest and can be easily consumed by anybody running the product. So just an idea of where the roadmap might look like for this capability. So today, generally you have to use Template Builder, right? There's a lot of capabilities in the product that are really only supported by the Template Builder. A lot of folks are using things like custom relationships, and there's a lot of other functions that are currently only available through Template Builder. So in AUD 10, we hope to introduce these configuration differencing tools that will make it much easier to merge changes. And so we expect folks would still be using Template Builder, but these tools will help with those workflows as well. The scenarios where you need to merge changes between sets of models and other parts of your configuration, that these tools can help make that process simpler. Later on, we hope to improve the in-product functionality so that it's more spreadsheet-like. So currently, editing large sets of models, editing all of your styles, it's much more efficient to do that in the spreadsheet and run that through Template Builder. We hope to build that kind of functionality into the product so that you can just author that stuff in product. That's also going to make it easier to test and verify. If you can author that immediately, test and verify those changes out in the product without having to wait to build the template. And then finally, the product has a need for capabilities that you can currently only do through Template Builder. So those may include, applying common attributes across all feature classes, or adding custom relations, or defining your styles in a tabular way. And then finally, just the ability to build a clean new template that's never been exposed in the product, or the ability to kind of create a starting template and set a set of data models that you want to use. So there are many other capabilities that are currently only exposed through the Template Builder. And then finally, that will lead to a point where Template Builder would be an optional component. It still may make sense, or perhaps as still the initial phase of configuration, but it would mean that if you wanted to set up the product strictly within the core product itself, that remains an option. And you can avoid the need to have to rebuild the template and adopt that newer workflow. So, again, it's very important everyone understand that this is a plan, strategy. We're presenting this now, and we're hoping to get your feedback on this. This is a great opportunity to, in the follow-up sessions and later this week, give us your thoughts on this. Let us know if you have any pain points, if this is addressing pain points, what you think of this general strategy. I think I'm very much looking forward to getting the feedback on this approach.
The question was the 8.5 releases, the current 8.5 releases, is that correct? Support 2023 and higher of map, correct? Yes, that is correct. So we have gotten a little tighter with our, we've always said that we support the current version of map plus 3 versions back. And we recently, we've been a little lax on that over the years because it didn't really cost us a whole lot to try to keep supporting those older versions, but that's becoming more and more difficult, especially now between the 2026 and 2025 .NET 8 and the framework changes to the older versions with 4.8 .NET framework, and then you get older versions of AutoCAD from that, and you go to framework like 4.6, I think it goes back to. And so trying to support all that is extremely difficult, test in all those environments, those types of things. Then additionally, Autodesk is dropping support for those versions as well. So when 2026 came out, they support 2023 through 2026. So as soon as we support that same level that Autodesk is supporting, we're supporting that same 3 versions back. So yes, right now, anything that comes out going forward will be 2023 through 2026. The next year when 2027 comes out, we'll support 2024 through 2027. And it'll just stay in that continuation. So, let me get my screen share going here. Okay, well, hopefully this is viewable enough. I know it won't be crystal clear coming through like this, but just wanted to give go out on a limb and do a little live demonstration of the alternative design workflow that I was talking about earlier with UDH. And just so I can see what I'm doing, I'm gonna put some glasses on. So to start with, I have AUD opened up here with UDH installed, and you can see I've got a design that I've linked and started already, so I'm going to go ahead and open that design. So just a very basic overhead design that I've done. So if I right-click in Work Order Browser, you'll see we have this new Show Alternatives on our menu here. We can also add buttons for this if you prefer buttons, those types of things. But we'll go ahead and do Show Alternatives. And that's going to switch over to the Alternatives panel. On this panel, you can see that currently I just have the main design is all that's defined. And if I select that design, you can see I have a little thumbnail image of it, a description about that particular design that I had pre-filled in to say this is an overhead service design. And then I have some options to create a new alternative if I wanted to. So I can either copy from the current design, make a copy of this, or I can start from a blank design, start fresh basically, with nothing in it. So I'll just go ahead and do the copy workflow. And you can see that it's auto-incrementing a version number. This is configured to set up to add an underscore and then a version name with a number inside of parentheses. I can type in here and modify that to something custom if I wanted to. But you can see it keeps it forces me to name the design to match the names that I have defined for even for the main design to be the work order number. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and do a copy and just just put in a quick, hard to type and hold the microphone at the same time, so hold on. So we'll just say this one's going to have a larger overhead transformer, but I want to start from this design because all I'm really going to swap out is the size of the transformer that I want to send over for to get a quote for. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and we're going to see the system kind of go to work here, and it's going to start creating that new copy of that design. So you can see I now have a new design in the list. It closed my original design, opened up the new design. You can see the name matches what it said it was going to match. And it started from the previous design that I had. So in this particular design, I might want to change this transformer from being a 25 kVA to a 50 kVA or any other types of changes that I may want to do. But it gives me a good starting point. I didn't have to redraft everything from scratch. I was able to basically use the existing features and a copy of that original design. So that's one option. The next option is maybe I want to start from a blank design. So I'm going to do a second version, and let me just type here real quick. So this one's going to be an underground instead of overhead, and I'm going to say blank design and say create. And that's going to go ahead and close my previous design that I had open, and then open this new one here, where I can now go ahead and start from scratch my new design, my underground design. So in this case, I'll just quickly drop in a pad mount transformer, just so that there's something in the drawing. And as part of this, let's say because this is underground, I need to set different work order properties for it. So I can come over to here and I can go to the work order viewer and I can say, show me all of my editable properties. And in this case, you can see I previously had this subdivision, not the greatest of examples, but it was an easy one to modify. This subdivision was set as Wildwood OH. And maybe for this one, I needed to say Wildwood UG for the underground version. So I'll go ahead and save that change. And the reason I'm using subdivision is just in this configuration, I have it set up to track changes on subdivision, to basically keep those in sync between my designs. So this now is Wildwood underground design, and I've got that set here. So now if I come back to back into the alternatives, if I want to switch back and say open on my original design, as this opens, I get prompted. Now this is configurable. It can automatically apply the changes, or it can ask you if you want to maintain or switch your properties. But this basically has detected that there was a change between the subdivision property from this design and the new design that I was working in. And so it's asking me, what do I want to do with that? And I can say I want to use the design alternative, the property that was previously saved with this one. So I'll go ahead and reapply that. And when I go back to my work order properties, I'll see that this is now switched back to Wildwood OH. So, basically you can configure as many of these properties as you want to be tracked, and then if it detects a difference, it'll allow you to switch back and forth between them as you're switching out the designs. Additionally, you can change which design is your active design. So if I really wanted the underground one to be my active design, I can right-click on it, say Set Active. And what the active design is from the work order browser, when you right-click and you say Open, it's going to open the active design. So yes, I want to reapply those properties as I'm making it the active. And then finally, you do have some control over this. You can rearrange these and save the order, reset the order, all of those types of things. So just helping with these alternative design workflows. There's been a lot of ask for this type of stuff where, it's not just, hey, I'm doing one drawing and that's all the design is going to be. I need alternative ways of doing that drawing and submitting that information. Additionally, we talked about environment switching. I just wanted to call that out here quickly because it's pretty easy to show. Right down here on the bottom toolbar, you'll see we've got already showing that we have a linked design here to this particular work order. And when we click on that little flyout, it's showing that my Active Directory currently is SBS Dev, and I can choose to change that. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? And do you want to save all of your work? And I can say, yes, I understand that impact. And then I'm presented with the other environments that I have installed on this machine. I can easily pick one of those and then say OK, and it will go ahead and swap out, close the application, swap out my configuration, and then when I relaunch, I'll be in that new environment. So I'm not actually going to walk you through all that and wait for the product to restart and all that kind of good stuff, but just wanted to show how simple it was to make that change there. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Dave next.
Thanks, Marty. So I'm going to go show a couple of those new features for AD. All right, so I have a kind of a little example drawing here with a little content to show some of this new functionality. There's quite a few validation errors over here. In a real production drawing, I'm sure you guys will see there'll be a lot of validations, and it can be difficult to sift through some of these. And we do have functions like the validation icons that can display and show some of this. But if you're working from the validation panel, it can be much simpler to just filter by the selection. So with this selection filtering on, when I just drag across these features, what's going to happen is it's just going to filter the items down to just those that are related to what I've selected. And this also works for what you've got selected here in feature info, right? So I can go in here and select, and it's just going to show me the validation items for what I've selected in the drawing. So this is a capability that can be pretty useful if you're needing to work through some of those validation items. Another new capability here is the ability to route when you place cabling within details. So in this example, I've got some underground laid out. I've got some conduits, and these are like separate conduits run off at a branch point. And so I'm going to go to add a conductor. And so normally when you would add a conductor to a conduit, you'd have to go through a series of, say, selecting the top level segment and selecting which conduits, and it may be difficult to determine that graphically. So in this case, I may know that I need to run a cable, and I want to keep it in these conduits that are in a particular position in both sections of the trench. So by being able to select in that detail, I can go lay that conduit in. And then instead of selecting the segment, I can just go in here and select in the detail the set of conduits I want to place that in. And then it will put it in those specific conduits. So it's a nice way to be able to select graphically where you want that containment to go. The last thing I'd like to show here is some selection filtering for the material list. So I'm going to go display the material list. And we've already had the functionality to filter the material list by selection. So there's the selected option over here. And if I turn the filter on, I can go in here and say, I'll select some things here. I'll go select this conduit. And so the material list has always had the ability to select and just show you the material items for what's selected. But we didn't have the ability to do that for the summation view. So now when you switch over to the summation view, it still retains that selection filtering. And that can be useful because I can go through here and check, maybe I want to just see how much quantity of a certain amount of conduit is in the drawing. I can use this to easily select. And then you'll see that material summary come up. So That's a potentially useful capability if you need to kind of do a quick ad hoc check of quantities of materials without having to worry about, assigning to work locations. You need to determine that independent of work locations. Maybe you haven't created the work location yet. It's just a capability that can be used to more easily view your material items. So I have one last demo where I'm just going to show the early prototype of that differencing tool. This is just a prototype, but it's using test files that are based on real configuration data. Eventually, this will be integrated into the product. But this is how the configuration tool is meant to work. The top bar has a series of filters, so by default, it's showing all the different types. They're all displayed differently, indicating the red hatching indicates the records that are being removed. So imagine a scenario where you're performing a configuration update, or you're importing or merging changes from another drawing. Perhaps you handed a drawing or a template off to someone and they made changes to the models. In this scenario, you'd be pulling that back in and say, hey, they've updated the set of switch models. I want to integrate that in. Maybe I want to take some of the changes, but maybe other changes have been made, and you want to review and make sure that those changes aren't going to revert anything. So in this tool, you can filter by that, but then also discard any of the changes that you don't want to bring in. So for example, let's say I was going to pull this in, and these really shouldn't be removed, right? I want to keep these because maybe these got added by someone else, right? I can say I want to discard those changes and then keep these records. Another thing you could do is if the changes are all individual value changes, you can select this and it will show you what the before and after were, right? So this is the new data that's coming in. I can see what the old data is. And I can select each one of those also and discard each individual change, right? So I can kind of omit individual changes that might be coming in. And then I can go through here and easily say, show me just the fields that got updated. So now in this case, it's only showing me those fields that were modified. And then there's navigation tools to navigate between the changes and, again, control what's being applied and what's not being applied. Another way of looking at it is to go into a single record view. So in this case, it may be easier to go review for a single entry. So maybe this is the one switch model that got updated. Again, same kind of display. I can go see what the changes are that are being applied. So this is kind of a brief overview. We did have an actual UX team develop this as a user interface. I think it's very well thought out and should hopefully be very easy to use and streamline this process. So I really have hopes this tool will be a very useful tool to you out there. Whether or not adopting a different workflow for your configuration, these tools should make it easier to deal with any types of scenarios where you need to merge disparate changes from folks. And again, very much looking forward to getting feedback on this and seeing what you folks think of this kind of approach and whether or not you'll find a tool like this useful and any other feedback on how this might work. And I think that's about it for the demos, Marty.